Welcome back to the Selling on Giants podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Will, and today we are talking about something every founder has thought about at some point, even if they do not say it out loud. Why do some brands always seem to catch a break? Right product, right timing, right category, right moment. Things seem to line up for them. Meanwhile, another founder can be in the same category, using the same tools, facing the same competitors, working with the same platforms, and somehow never really gets traction. The easy answer is luck. I don't think that is what's happening. After working across enough Amazon, Walmart, Target, and broader marketplace accounts, you start to see a different pattern. Two brands can face the same cost per click pressure, the same review challenges, the same listing requirements, the same compliance headaches, and the same competitive intensity, but one grows while the other stalls. At some point, you stop blaming the market and you start looking at how decisions are being made. There is research from psychologist Dr. Richard Wiseman that looks at people who consider themselves lucky compared with people who consider themselves unlucky. The finding is simple, but it hits. Lucky people are not necessarily experiencing more random success. They tend to notice more opportunities, act on them faster, expect better outcomes, and reinterpret setbacks in a way that keeps them moving. That does not sound like luck to me. That sounds like behavior. If you have been operating in e-commerce long enough, you have seen this happen in real time. One founder sees rising costs per clicks and immediately says, "This category is too expensive." Another founder sees the same data and says, "There is demand here, but we need to convert better." Same signal, completely different interpretation. One sees a warning sign, the other sees a problem worth solving. That difference matters because the way you interpret the problem determines what you do next. Most people expect opportunity to be obvious. It rarely is. Opportunity usually shows up looking inconvenient, unclear, expensive, or frustrating. In e-commerce, it often shows up as higher ad costs, a crowded category, a product that converts okay but not great, slower review velocity, or a launch that does not match the forecast. That is where most operators get tested because the first version of opportunity usually looks more like a problem than a gift. We have seen brands look at rising cost per clicks and pull back too quickly. Their conclusion is that the category is too competitive. Sometimes that is true, but a lot of times the real issue is that the listing is not strong enough, the offer is not sharp enough, the creative does not answer the buyer's objections, or the ad campaign is paying for demand the brand has not yet earned the right to convert. Other brands look at the same situation and lean in more intelligently. They do not spend blindly. They improve the product page. They test imagery. They tighten the title. They clean up the review strategy. They adjust pricing. They study the search terms. They look at what the market is telling them and use it. 6 months later, from the outside, one brand looks lucky. Inside the account, it usually looks more like one brand stayed engaged after everyone else decided the opportunity was too hard. That is a point sellers need to sit with. A lot of what people call luck is really someone continuing to work the problem after everyone else stops. The market usually gives signals before it gives rewards, and the operators who win are often the ones willing to stay with the signal long enough to understand what it is actually telling them. This connects directly to speed because a lot of founders stay stuck because they wait. They wait for the perfect listing. They wait for the perfect margin structure. They wait for inventory planning to feel safe. They wait for creative to feel final. They wait for internal alignment. They wait until the launch feels less risky. Meanwhile, another brand launches, not perfectly, not fully polished, and not with every single detail buttoned up, but live. Once a product is live, the brand starts learning. They see click behavior, they see conversion signals, they see which search terms actually matter, they learn where customers hesitate, they see which images create attention and which images do nothing. They find out whether the offer is strong enough. That is where momentum starts. And momentum almost always comes from real market feedback, not another round of internal debate. The cleanest brand on day one does not always win. The brand that learns faster usually does. That does not mean you launch sloppy. It means you understand the difference between preparation and avoidance. There is a point where another internal meeting does not reduce risk. It delays learning. Every test gives you another shot at getting it right, and every delay pushes that learning further out. This is also why failure is such a clean separator between operators. At some point, something will not work. A product underperforms. Ads do not scale. Reviews stall. Inventory moves slower than expected. A competitor drops price. Amazon changes a rule. Walmart suppresses a listing. Target takes longer to build momentum than anyone hoped. That moment tells you a lot about the operator because the situation itself is usually neutral. It is the interpretation that creates the next move. We see this all the time. An underperforming product gets written off instead of adjusted. Low conversion gets blamed on the market instead of the listing. High advertising cost gets blamed on ads instead of positioning. Weak sales get blamed on the platform instead of the offer. The better operators do not ignore problems. They are not blindly positive. They simply do not stop at the first conclusion. They look at the issue and say, this version is not working yet. That word matters. Yet. It keeps you in the game long enough to improve the offer, rework the creative, sharpen the audience, fix the content, adjust pricing, or rethink the product strategy. A weaker operator sees failure as a verdict. A stronger operator sees it as feedback. That sounds simple, but it is one of the biggest differences between brands that keep growing and brands that stay stuck. Expectations also shape execution in a way most founders underestimate. What you expect influences how you move. If you believe a product has a real chance to work, you give it time. You test different angles. You invest in improving the listing. You stay close to the data. You keep asking better questions. If you do not believe it will work, you start pulling back early. You cut spend. You avoid risk. You protect downside. You stop testing because every new test feels like throwing good money after bad. Both approaches can feel logical in the moment. Only one creates the conditions for growth. That is why mindset is not some soft founder concept. It has operating consequences. Your belief affects your budget decisions. It affects your testing cadence. It affects how quickly you respond to data. It affects whether you see a bad week as a warning sign or a learning cycle. The founder who expects things to fail usually finds a reason to stop. The founder who expects things to work keeps looking for the path. And this matters because the operating environment sellers are in right now is not easy. Costs are up. Competition is real. Platform rules keep changing. Advertising is more complex. Review building is harder. Consumers are more selective. Retail media is more expensive. Every marketplace wants cleaner data, better content, stronger compliance, and faster execution. All of that is true. And still, some brands are growing. That is the part sellers need to pay attention to. We have seen brands with almost identical starting points move in completely different directions. One hesitates and protects downside. The other tests, adapts, and builds momentum. One waits for the market to get easier. The other accepts the market as it is and figures out how to operate inside it. Over time, those small decisions stack. From the outside, people say the winning brand had better timing, better luck, or better category conditions. Inside the account, the difference is usually much less mysterious. They moved faster, they learned faster, they adjusted faster, they stayed in the game longer. This is where a lot of brands get stuck, and it is also where Bellavix tends to create the most value. A lot of teams do not need more noise. They need clearer operating judgment. They need someone who can look at the data, separate the signal from the excuse, and turn marketplace complexity into a practical plan the team can actually execute. Bellavix has helped brands sell over $500 million on Amazon, and we are a verified ad partner, but the real value is not a badge or a big number. It is hands-on strategy, execution, and pattern recognition across accounts, categories, and platform changes. When the market gets messy, the answer is not to freeze. The answer is to build a clear plan and move with discipline. If your brand needs that kind of support, visit bellavix.com. Now, back to the bigger point, because when you step back, the pattern becomes pretty clear. The brands that move forward treat data as feedback. They do not worship the first result, and they do not panic when the first version misses. They pay attention to what the market is telling them, and then they make decisions. They move faster than they are comfortable moving. They stay in the game longer than their competitors, and when something breaks, they adjust. That is not reckless. That is not blind optimism. That is operating discipline. The worst thing a brand can do is confuse caution with intelligence. There is a version of caution that protects the business, and there is another version that slowly starves it. The market does not reward the brand with the most internal meetings. It rewards the brand that gets closer to the customer, learns what matters, and acts before the window closes. So if you want a practical way to think about luck, start here. Look where others stop looking, because that is usually where the opportunity is hiding. Launch before everything feels fully ready, because you will not learn much sitting still. Take something useful from every setback, even if the only useful thing is clarity on what does not work. And operate like this has a chance to succeed, because your decisions follow that belief whether you realize it or not. This does not mean every product works. It does not mean every marketplace opportunity is worth chasing. It does not mean every bad result is secretly a breakthrough. It means your interpretation of the situation determines whether you stay around long enough to find the next move. And I will give you my own bias here. I am a die-hard optimist. I see the best in people. I assume people will do what is right. I see potential before proof. That mindset has cost me. I have hired the wrong people. I have trusted too early. I have had employees steal. I have had clients go months without paying. There are plenty of moments I could point to and call bad luck, but I never stopped. I never shut things down. I never shifted into a defensive operating mindset, and I never stopped believing things would work out. Not in a naive way. I see what is happening. I understand the downside. I know when something hurts. I know when a decision was wrong. I know when trust was misplaced. I simply do not let that become the operating system. Over time, that adds up. Staying in the game, continuing to move, and continuing to look for what could work creates more chances for things to work. And when enough of those chances start hitting, people call it luck. That is the part I want sellers and founders to take away from this. Luck is not always random. A lot of the time, luck is how you interpret what is in front of you. Same market, same challenges, same inputs, different approach. Some founders look at friction and see proof that the opportunity is not worth it. Others look at that same friction and see the work required to unlock it. That is the difference. Not magic, not timing, not some invisible advantage, perception, behavior, speed, and resilience. So the better question is not whether you are lucky. The better question is whether you are operating like someone who is willing to find the opportunity before it becomes obvious to everyone else. That's it for this episode of the Selling on Giants podcast. If this gave you a different way to think about momentum, setbacks, or how your team interprets data, share it with another founder or operator who needs to hear it. And if you are getting value from the show, I'd appreciate a quick review. It helps us reach more sellers who are trying to build smarter, stronger marketplace businesses. I'm Mr. Will, host of the Selling on Giants podcast. Thanks for listening, and keep moving forward.